Hey everyone, today we'll be making lamb chops with baked and griddled russet potatoes, sweet potatoes, and asparagus. Another great, well-rounded meal that includes a meat, veggie, and starch that you can make completely on your Blackstone. I know a lot of people aren't fans of lamb, and my family wasn't at first, but I'd like to share with you a few great things I've discovered recently about lamb meat and some ways to cook it to make it extra specially good. The first thing I found out a few years ago is that we are starting to raise lamb here in America. More specifically, farms in Colorado have been raising lamb on a diet that makes it far less gamey tasting than lamb from Europe and Australia. This lamb goes by a few names, but I've mostly seen it as Colorado lamb and sometimes lamb from a farm called Superior. A quick Google search or call to your local butcher shop should help you locate this product. Let's jump to a few ingredients for today's meal. As you may have seen from my other videos, I like to prep and cook my veggies by tossing them in a gallon-sized plastic bag, adding a little bit of salt and oil, and shuffling them around. Next, I'll be cooking russet potatoes and sweet potatoes. I've discovered a really neat and novel way to cook these on the Blackstone that add to the overall taste and texture. However, we won't be cooking these potatoes entirely on the Blackstone. These will first have to be prepped by simply tossing them in the microwave until they've cooked all the way through. Onto our seasoning. Today we'll be cooking with black pepper, some rosemary, butter for our potatoes and for our sweet potatoes. Got a box of coarse salt, which I like because I can see it while I add it to my food. And finally, our secret lamb ingredient, beef tallow or rendered beef fat. This is my homemade beef tallow. It's from a rib roast that I made a couple months ago. There's a number of YouTube videos on how to make beef tallow, but you can easily purchase this in just about any grocery store. In a nutshell, beef tallow gives everything this wonderful underlying flavor of steak, and it complements this lamb particularly well. All right, so let's turn this bad boy on. If you've watched my prep, cook, and clean video, I always start with turning my griddle up to 350 degrees and then adding a layer of oil. This layer of oil added to the preheated surface of the Blackstone, preheating being the key, is essentially a guaranteed way to ensure nothing sticks to your Blackstone. Once the oil's been added, I raise my temperature up to around 400 degrees for pretty much all my vegetables. Once the vegetables are added, the temperature will drop to around 350 degrees from the steaming, from the heat extraction from the griddle, and I typically hold it at this temperature for cooking most of my vegetables. Cooking asparagus is really easy. You really just want to make sure that you keep them all in contact with the surface of the griddle. Adding a little bit of oil here and there if you don't hear them sizzling. Make sure you flip them every couple of minutes so that they cook on all sides. But one of the things I like to do when cooking my asparagus to keep them somewhat organized, this is partially an OCD thing, but it also helps me get a sense of where the hotter and colder spots are on the griddle so that I can shift them around so that they all evenly cook. Additionally, asparagus tips tend to cook and burn a bit faster than the rest of the stalk. So keeping them aligned and away from the most intense areas of the heat on your cooking surface will ensure more consistent cooking. All right, with those now off, we can do a quick clean of the griddle and begin to raise our temperature to prepare for our lamb chops. With most meat, I bring the temperature to 550 degrees to ensure a great sear. And then I drop the temperature down to 400 so that the meat can cook all the way through. Lamb chops are thin and tend to cook quickly. So the key here is that we have to work a bit fast to ensure that we get both a great sear and we do not overcook them. Now that we're at temp, it's time to add our secret ingredient, beef tallow. Once that melts, we'll throw the chops on. Once I have a nice sear on the one side, I flip them over and then immediately add my rosemary and ground black pepper. I always add my seasoning in the last few minutes of all of my cooks. This allows for the seasoning to give off its essential oils and prevent it from scorching or burning. These chops took about 3 minutes to cook per side for a total time of around 5 to 6 minutes. As I talk about my other videos, I always check my internal temperatures and never guess doneness, but my priority is always great sear, followed by nailing the right internal temperature. And there we have it, some beautiful lamb chops that I'll move over to my grill to stay warm while we go on to our potatoes. All right, with the surface clean and the temperature sitting around 400 degrees, I'm going to add some butter. Since we're working with butter, anything above 400 degrees will cause it to burn, so make sure you're monitoring your temperature before you add the butter to your griddle. Next, I'm going to take the microwave potatoes that I've cut in half and lay them directly into the butter. This will allow the potatoes to absorb the butter and to create a crisp surface on the top. Cooking these potatoes is really just a matter of getting the bottom to crisp, so timing isn't critical because they're already cooked. So just grab your tongs every few minutes and check them for doneness. While they're crisping up, I like to add some butter and salt to the skins for my family members that like to eat them. And there you have it, a nice, crispy baked potato. All right, now we're going to do the same for our sweet potatoes, but this time I'm going to use some avocado oil for those of us in the house who don't do too well with dairy. Same process as before. We check the bottoms every few minutes. When they're crisp, we pull them off. And there you have it, another well-rounded, delicious meal completely made on your Blackstone, some Colorado lamb, asparagus, and a griddled potato. I'd like to thank you all again for taking the time to watch this video. I'm hoping to publish a new video about once a week, so please stay tuned for my next one.